Hey dudes, guess what's up? E3 is gonna arrive soon. Aren't you hype? It's coming next month. That's right, E3 2021, after a 1-year absence in the year of our Lord 2020, is happening. Skipped a year and now it's back. Better than ever, maybe. I didn't sleep last night. I feel great. Let's talk. So since I like Nintendo the most out of the major publishers in the gaming industry, I'll be devoting much of this discussion to that subject. However, before that, touch on one or two things that I think are notable that we'll probably see. First of all, being Halo Infinite. Halo's a pretty big gaming franchise, as you may know. I played through the original trilogy on PC last year, and I really enjoyed it. I think they're really good games. I think that the overall gaming landscape is better when Halo is a healthy series, so hopefully Infinite lives up to the legacy of the series. There's indications that it might, and there's also indications that it might not. So we'll go to Nintendo next. So Nintendo last year, around this time, did not show anything. We waited several months, and then we got partner showcases and little mini Treehouse Live segments where they announced Bakugan games. So it was a bit dire in the summer of 2020, and hopefully in the summer of 2021, things are a little more bright. First of all, let's talk about some spicy rumors that have been going around, specifically about Donkey Kong.
Oh, these are pretty cool bananas.
Got some people saying that Nintendo EPD, the creators of Super Mario Odyssey and several other quality titles, are working on a new Donkey Kong game that is not a part of the Country series, apparently. And some sources have claimed that this is a 2D game, though we don't know that for certain. Some people, I think, assumed that it would be a 3D game since it's being worked on by the same team as Mario Odyssey, but there's no real clear indication of that. I'd be pleased with both of these. I really enjoy the 2D Donkey Kong series, both Returns and Tropical Freeze being the most recent, of course, by Retro Studios. So another 2D entry would be very good. It's high time for a new Donkey Kong entry. It's been several years since Tropical Freeze was originally released, and we've only had a port since then, and nothing else in the series at all, really. Hopefully they've got something for us. This rumor has a decent chance of being accurate, I'd say, not because of where it came from, because we can't really tell how likely it is based on where it came from. Rumors are a dime a dozen, so you can never really tell when one's going to be on the money or not. A Donkey Kong game is the kind of thing that I could very well see being announced at E3, and honestly, it would be very exciting. 3D would be a little more interesting just because we haven't had a 3D Donkey Kong game since DK64 on the N64, which had a mixed reception. Seeing such a talented team tackle a 3D Donkey Kong game would be very, very exciting. And even if it's a 2D one, that's still going to be really cool and something to keep an eye out for. Our next little rumor is 2D Metroid. We've had 2D Metroid rumors for a long time. New 2D Metroid by Mercury Steam, the developers of Samus Returns, which is a great game. I really enjoyed Samus Returns. I thought it made some really excellent modernizations of the original game, which I haven't played. Hopefully Mercury Steam can continue this trend of great 2D Metroid games with a new title, whether that be a remake or a wholly original game. I think a totally new game would get a lot more people excited, though a remake of one of the classic titles like the original Metroid or Metroid Fusion or Super Metroid would also be really appreciated. Hopefully Metroid fans, who are a very hungry bunch, get a new game at this E3, because Prime 4 is quite likely a ways off, so getting another game between now and then would be good. I think that's all the major rumors that I can think of at the moment. I'm probably forgetting something, but that's okay because we got other stuff to talk about in the realm of Nintendo. First of all, let's talk about some of the obvious stuff that we're very, very likely to see. Most exciting of which, perhaps, is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. It's been a long time since we saw this game. The last time was in 2018 at E3, and Aonuma, one of the brains behind the Legend of Zelda series, did state in the spring Nintendo Direct that we would be seeing more of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 later in the year, and as of right now, it is later in the year, so I think it would be an automatic win for Nintendo to show the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which is a game which a lot of people like, sold very well, I love it. It's a great game, has influenced a lot of other games, So a sequel to Breath of the Wild is a super big deal. So I think just even showing a trailer and nothing else would generate a lot of gamer hype. So it would be very unwise of them not to show it. And if they didn't, it would be kind of strange. At this point, I'm very comfortable expecting to see it. I'd say we'll probably see some gameplay demos as well, like they had with Breath of the Wild 1. We had so much gameplay footage shown off just because there's so much to see in Breath of the Wild. It'll be very interesting to see where they take the story and setting. And yeah, there's just a lot of unanswered questions about the game that I'm very excited to see answered. So that's one game we can bet on. Next one that is incredibly likely is the next DLC fighter for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And given that this is a character being revealed at E3, I'd say you can expect something pretty good that a lot of people are gonna like. There's no real way of predicting the exact caliber of the character to be revealed. Obviously, that's very subjective, but usually at E3, they have at least one heavily fan-requested character or a character who is well-known. The last E3, we had the reveal of Hero and Banjo-Kazooie, both of which were pretty big reveals in their own right. Hero definitely appeals more to the Japanese audience than the Western one. That series is just a lot larger in Japan, so from what I understand, it generated a lot more hype over there, though of course, international Dragon Quest fans are obviously quite pleased. But the other one is Banjo-Kazooie, and Banjo-Kazooie was a hugely fan-requested character, especially in Western regions, so I'd think Nintendo took the venue into account when revealing Banjo-Kazooie. And then in 2020, of course, we did not have an E3 character reveal because Nintendo was not at E3. If I had to speculate and venture a guess, I'd say Steve was very, very possibly planned to be revealed at E3 because that's a very big gaming franchise that a lot of people are excited about to see in Smash Bros. Because Minecraft is such a huge property. So that leads us to the question, who could it be? Who is it gonna be? Maybe, I don't know. From my point of view, I'd say a third party is more likely than a first party character. Just to venture a couple of guesses into what kind of caliber that character might be, we could do Rayman, we could do Crash Bandicoot, we could do Doom Guy. Would love Doom Guy. Ninja Gaiden Man, maybe? I'd say expect someone in that vein. That's just what I'm kind of thinking at this point in time, based on trends we've seen in the past. So I'd say we will probably just get one character, even though we've had two characters in the past, and we'll probably get the last character reveal in a Nintendo Direct later in the year, or at perhaps the Game Awards or a similar event. Personally, I'm a little burned out on Smash Bros. Character reveals. I enjoy them a lot, but it just takes a lot of mental energy to get worked up over them, and more often than not, I end up disappointed in some way. This last character pass has had a lot of characters from franchises I wanted represented, but they didn't add the character I wanted. So we got Min Min instead of Springman, who I would have preferred, and then we got Pyra and Mithra instead of Rex, who I also would have preferred. So even when they add characters from franchises I want, they aren't always the characters that I would have selected, so that kind of leaves me feeling conflicted because it's like from a game I like, but the exact representation isn't what I would have chosen, so it's sort of a bittersweet thing, which makes it kind of frustrating. More characters to play as is always a good thing. I obviously can't complain too much. Smash Bros. Has a pretty great roster. It's very huge, so certainly in terms of the quantity, can't complain. So even if they add a character I don't particularly like or am excited by, they pretty much always are fun to play as in some way. Next, we'll touch on Pokemon a little bit, because there are two pretty huge Pokemon games coming, that being the Diamond and Pearl remakes, and Pokemon Legends Arceus. I'm not gonna say Arceus, that's blasphemy. I don't care if it's canon, it's not the way it should be said. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, from my perspective, they've got a bit to prove, because at the initial reveal I was like, yeah, Diamond and Pearl remakes, but then as what they are sunk in, I got a little less positive on them. At this point it does look like a one-to-one remake of the original games, and that's kind of dull, just because we've seen what Pokemon remakes can do in the past. Even going back to Fire Red and Leaf Green, they added a pretty substantial amount of content compared to the original games. You had those different islands you could go to and such, in addition to the upgraded visuals. And then of course you have Soul Silver and Heart Gold, which bizarrely enough I haven't played. I really want to play those at some point. I just never got around to it, sadly. And those games are huge fan favorites. They added a lot of new content like Pokemon following you, some new story stuff, I believe, just a lot of cool things, the Pokewalker. So they really expanded the original Gold and Silver. And then we have Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which are slightly less renowned than Soul Silver and Heart Gold, but from my perspective, they did add a lot of valuable things. I liked the new improvements to the bases. I really enjoyed the new Mega Evolutions. The soaring mechanic was a lot of fun. I liked how many legendaries you could find in the world. I liked the Delta episode. I think Zinnia as a character kind of sucks. Other than that, the Delta episode was really great. I think the major complaint with these was the removal of the Battle Frontier area, which I agree really is totally lame. They kind of like rubbed salt in the wound by having like a little display stand of the Battle Frontier, and they're like, oh, it's under construction, but nothing ever came of that. So it's just like, why is that even there? That's what the hell? But other than that though, like I really liked those games. I like them a lot more than X and Y, in all honesty. I think they have a lot more replay value and are just better games overall. The art style is obviously a lot different from the original Ruby and Sapphire. They have the X and Y models, which are more elongated. But then with Shining Diamond and Brilliant Pearl, whatever, oh God, I'm never gonna get those right. Nothing we have seen indicates that they're really adding anything. Very likely that they'll add something, but we don't know what that would be, and we don't know what form that's going to take and how much of an impact that's going to have on the game. At this point, I'm pretty skeptical of these games, actually, even though I was originally, reasonably excited. I don't know what they're adding to it. And if they don't add anything, then it's gonna be hard to argue that they are worth this $60 price tag. Is kind of a wait and see situation. We'll see what happens. The thing with the visual style is just based on what I've seen, it doesn't justify itself. And honestly, I kind of prefer the pixelated style of the originals. And if these are one-to-one remakes, it like begs the question, why don't I just play the original games? Because you could argue, there's a legitimate argument to be made that the original games look better. Hopefully it does offer a reason to purchase this upgrade. And then we have Let's Go Arceus, not Let's Go, Legends Arceus, which also has quite a bit to prove based on the gameplay that we've seen. It's pretty rough in terms of visuals and performance. That's something we've seen from Pokemon games, particularly within the last 10 years. Hopefully we can get some of that ironed out. There is a decent amount of time until release. Spring 22 is the release window they gave. Maybe it was not spring, I don't know. It was 2022 at least. I think we're probably going to see both those games, and hopefully they give more information. Our next game, Splatoon 3. Mixed feelings on Splatoon 3. I think this was kind of a weak way to end the Nintendo Direct we had in the spring. Splatoon is not really a game I feel like I need more than one of on a system. I kind of felt like Splatoon 2 was sort of overly derivative of the first game. It didn't really feel like they changed that much of the gameplay. I don't know. Splatoon 2 kind of just felt like an upgraded port in a lot of ways. That changed. They added a lot of new content, and I think the DLC campaign, Octo Expansion they added, was one of the better single-player campaigns Nintendo's made in the last 5 years. I really enjoyed Octo Expansion. I think it's really great in a lot of ways. I kind of hate the male Octoling design, but it's kind of besides the point. Really great campaign, really distinct for the Splatoon series. Also really like Salmon Run. They added a lot of content to that. This new game, it does look distinct. They have the weird post-apocalyptic thing, because by some unholy miracle, Pearl won the last Splatfest, so we're stuck with this weird hellscape. So it looks, interesting in terms of that. I just have difficulty getting excited for it just because I don't really feel that much of a need for a new Splatoon game, though I'm sure a lot of people would disagree. I'm sure there's a lot of hardcore Splatoon fans that are really looking forward to it. Of the Nintendo games that need a sequel, Splatoon is pretty low on the list for me. I just don't really feel like it's all that warranted at this point in time. And there's a lot of games I would prefer to see a sequel to before Splatoon. I think, we'll probably get some new gameplay demos. They'll show like what unique things they have, some of the story mode probably. I'm fine with it existing. I just would have preferred them make something else instead. And one of the last things that is a sure thing is the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword remake thing. They'll probably show a bit of that. Kind of dull in terms of E3 content. Hopefully they keep that to a minimum and focus on the more exciting things. We know what we're getting. It's going to be an HD version of Skyward Sword. That being said, they could show some quality of life improvements. I know a lot of people want them to cut down on like Fi and some of the hand-holdy stuff. I have no real opinion on that because I haven't played the game. I'm not really expecting that, honestly. I'm kind of just expecting a straight port with 1 or 2 changes. They made the motion controls optional. That'll appeal to some people, obviously, but you know, just kind of a whatever title for me. Like, it's fine, but I'm just not super excited by that. And then we got the Mario Golf game. We'll probably get a new trailer, some new characters and stuff. I'm looking forward to Mario Golf. I really enjoyed Mario Tennis Aces. I think Camelot is really good at these Mario sports games. From what I heard, they stumbled with the Mario Tennis on Wii U, but Mario Tennis Aces, like, it had like a serviceable story mode. It wasn't amazing, but it was serviceable. They had a lot of cool characters. Even in the base roster, there were a lot of good characters. Like Chain Chomp, I think, was in the base roster. And then they added a lot of other characters, some really good ones too. We got some weird ones like Fire Piranha Plant and PT Piranha and Boom Boom Hammock. Yeah, really good cast in that game, and I know a lot of people complain like, oh, it wasn't at launch. For some people, they would prefer to have it at launch. For me, I actually like them doling it out monthly. That actually kept me playing the game each month just to get the new character. So I actually have, yeah, decent expectations for Mario Golf. What they showed looked really good. I love the new designs for the characters like Wario, Waluigi, and Bowser has an outfit. Almost every character has a new golf outfit, which I really love. That was one of the strongest parts of Aces, was all the new outfits the characters got. That were really fun. There were a few leaked characters, apparently one of them being King Bob-omb, which is a really great inclusion. I love when they get the slightly wackier characters in there that, you know, are still really recognizable and well known, but just aren't usually featured as playable. That's a really great inclusion, and hopefully we get even more like that. And honestly, I would be fine with a Mario Tennis Aces model where they just release a character monthly. That worked fine for me, and if it ain't broke. They'll probably have some pretty lengthy gameplay demos for that at a Treehouse event, I would assume. I love those Treehouse streams. I've missed them so much. They're so much fun to just chill out and watch. There's always something to look forward to. They've done some game announcements at the Treehouse before. They announced Samus Returns. They show some exciting indie games, like we got a Silk Song demo. That's most of the games that I would expect to see, which is actually a really good lineup. So if they just had that, that would be great. But there's another game that I'd say is very, very possible, and that's Kirby. HAL Laboratory has not released a full $60 Kirby game since Kirby Star Allies in 2018. That's over 3 years back now. HAL Laboratory is a very efficient developer from what we've seen. Kirby games come out at a very good rate. The only games they've developed since then were Box Boy plus Box Girl, which is a much smaller title. We've had 2 digital exclusive Kirby games, being Kirby Fighters 2 and Super Kirby Clash, but those were developed in tandem with Vanpool, another developer, so the full might of HAL Laboratory was not on those projects. They were obviously involved in many aspects, but they were not the sole developer on those projects. And then we had Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, which was, from what I can gather, developed largely by a team at Nintendo. And lastly, we had the Part-Time UFO Switch port. You know, it's just a port of a mobile game. They obviously added a few things, but in terms of workload, that must have been pretty small. What this brings us to is that HAL Laboratory has been working on a new Kirby game for about 3 years. And that's very exciting because there's a lot of possibilities. I think in a video previously, I predicted that a new Kirby spin-off was likely, but I think the 2 digital exclusive games kind of fill that void for the time being. And I think the next game will be sort of a main series type game, something that won't be positioned as a spin-off like Kirby and the Rainbow Curse or Kirby Battle Royale. It'll be a more conventional Kirby adventure. The big question, though, is whether this is going to be a 2D game or a 3D game, because there's been lots of little hints and indications that 3D is something that HAL Laboratory is interested in. We had Kirby's Blowout Blast, which was sort of a 3D remake of the original Kirby's Dream Land, which was really cool. The gameplay was really just focused on the inhaling mechanic, but it worked really well. And then we had Kirby Battle Royale. Much of those mini games took place in a 3D setting, and they adapted the copy abilities to work within a 3D space. That's one of the weaker Kirby games in recent memory. There's not a lot of content. It is basically basically just 10 different mini games that you play over and over again. It's not exceptional in the grand scheme of things, but I really enjoyed the implementation of the copy abilities in a 3D space, something we haven't really seen before since Kirby Air Ride, really, which was more limited, and they were basically just Mario Kart items in the form of copy abilities. They've been doing things in 3D, and I think there were some like data mined files in Kirby Fighters 2 that indicated some 3D stuff. So there's been like a lot of little things that have led us to believe that a 3D Kirby game is coming. One of them being the comments made by the HAL Laboratory developers, who have basically said that the next Kirby game is going to be a big deal. And as a fan of the series, that's exciting to hear, because Kirby Star Allies was in a lot of ways fairly unambitious in terms of its gameplay. I think that game did a lot of things right, specifically in regards to the DLC. I think the Dream Friends were great. I like that we got that sort of Kirby GCN concept realized finally, of having 3 different copy ability helpers with you throughout the game. I think that was good. Just the execution was sort of bland for the base game, at least. It was a fairly conventional Kirby adventure, and it was far too easy. Whereas the previous main series games, Return to Dreamland, Triple Deluxe, and Planet Robobot, actually had very well-balanced difficulties, but Star Allies, it just veered far too easy for the base game. The DLC fixed it a bit, but that base game was still fairly unchanged, which is unfortunate. Big things are gonna happen for Kirby, I'd say. That's what it's looking like. I've been very hungry for a new Kirby game. I bought the Kirby art book that they released earlier this year just because I need new Kirby stuff, and it's been a while. And the other big thing is that Kirby's 30th anniversary is next year. And if we look at Kirby E3 reveals, a lot of them are revealed in the summer of E3 and then released in the spring of next year. If that continues, we could very well see a Kirby game released in spring of 2022, perhaps even earlier, perhaps sometime in 2021. I would say 2022 is probably more likely based on the way Kirby games have been revealed in the past. It would just line up really, really well with that 30th anniversary. HAL Laboratory actually does tend to do stuff for their anniversaries, unlike a lot of other Nintendo series, since they kind of have the Kirby series to themselves, whereas a lot of other series like Metroid or Donkey Kong don't really have a sole developer who only makes those games, whereas HAL Laboratory, they pretty much are largely the Kirby company. They really push that brand. They do a lot of merchandise. I think we're definitely getting stuff for Kirby's 30th anniversary, and we're overdue for a new Kirby game, and HAL Laboratory has really been talking up their next project. God, there's so much to be excited for, and I would honestly be a little bit surprised if we didn't see a Kirby game at E3. I was actually kind of expecting a Kirby game in the Nintendo Direct in spring, and since we didn't go on there, I think it makes a new Kirby game at E3 even more likely than it would have been. I think that's like basically all I have to say on E3. Really wanted to talk about the Kirby stuff. I'm so glad I did. I'm so excited about the future of the series. This is an incredibly exciting time to be a Kirby fan, just because of the possibility on the horizon. I think even if they did make a 2D game, I think it would be a very exceptional 2D game, even though I would prefer a 3D one, of course, because that would be more interesting and would be a further evolution for the series. So for me, this is looking to be one of the most exciting E3s in a while, just because we didn't have one last year. I think there's a decent chance we'll get some great stuff. Breath of the Wild 2 is a given. Many other exciting titles are a given, like the new Pokemon stuff. Splatoon 3 is exciting in a lot of ways. So even if we just get games we've already seen for the most part, that's a good lineup. And we essentially always get new stuff at E3, so we can definitely expect some surprises, whether they be things that have been rumored like Donkey Kong, or if it's something entirely new, that's good. Other thing we might see, maybe Silk Song, probably not. I don't know, maybe. Who knows when that's coming out? I've missed the E3 hype cycle. It's just so fun to see what's going on with Nintendo. I've missed it much. As I've said, there's a good chance this will be, at the very least, a great E3, because I think just having Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 would be enough to make this pretty great, and they're definitely having that. So, new Kirby game, very likely at this point. I don't know if I mixed anything. Didn't really talk about much of the other developers, just because don't got as much to say on that. Project Triangle Strategy will probably show up. I liked the demo for that. That was good. I'm looking forward to that too, and that'll probably be at E3. Lot of stuff to look forward to. Thank you for listening to me talk for a long time. I'll see you in the future. I'll probably talk about E3 when it happens. I feel like I'm gonna die now, so bye.